With mortgage rates up, stamp duty increasing, and even more red tape when investing in property, more and more people are questioning whether property investment is worth it. And I get it. I speak to property investors all day, every day, and a lot of property investors are overwhelmed and uncertain. Here's the truth. The property market isn't the same as it was 10 years ago. Things have changed, and for some people, that will mean that it's not worth it anymore. But if you understand the market and look at it in the long term, property is still one of the best investments you can do if you have cash to invest. In this video, I'll break down the current challenges in the property market, the opportunities that are still there, and we'll work out whether property investment is still worth it for you. If you're new here, welcome. My name's James. I'm the co-founder and managing director of a property investment business called Freighter Property Partners, but this channel is all about your education. As I mentioned, there's no denying the property market has changed in recent years. We've got changes in legislation with the incoming Renters' Rights Bill. We've got blanket covers of Article 4 for HMOs. There's changes in limitations of what you can do within serviced accommodation and more. First, let's look at the Renters' Rights Bill. The Renters' Rights Bill is obviously being introduced to protect tenants. It essentially means you cannot remove a tenant without a genuine reason. It's been said that these processes will be improved to remove tenants as and when you need to if they are being problematic. And these reasons could include you're moving into the property yourselves, they're missing rent repeatedly, or they're involved in antisocial behaviour. But what you'll need to do is make sure that your letting agent is reference checking tenants to a high degree before you ever rent the property out to them. You've then got Article 4. Article 4 for HMOs essentially means it makes it more difficult for you to convert a property to a HMO without planning permission. Traditionally, councils use this Article 4 in one or two locations across the country, but it has become more prominent, stopping just anyone introducing HMOs. You've also got restrictions on things like serviced accommodation. We've seen it in places like London, which essentially puts a maximum number of nights that you can rent the property out on a short-term basis. But there still is opportunity within investment property. The main reasons for the wider introduction of Article 4 and the restrictions within serviced accommodation is purely down to supply issues. As a country, we don't have enough homes to meet the increasing demand. Local councils and the government are seeing properties rented out either for HMOs or serviced accommodation are properties that could be used for somebody's home, which means they can have more control over which properties are rented out on a short-term basis and which properties are actually rented out to long-term tenants providing homes for the local people. There's definitely still a market for HMOs, but I think they're more targeted towards quality homes that actually provide a service that people could live in long term rather than short-term accommodation where people might just stay for a couple of nights a week or anything like that. The next challenge you're facing as a current property investor are higher mortgage costs. For years, interest rates on your mortgage would have been particularly low when investing in property, which allows you to see a good return on investment with your rental profit as well as benefit from the long-term appreciation of the asset. Because these low interest rates lasted for 10 to 15 years, we became very used to the rates being at that level. If we actually look historically, those lower rates were significantly lower than what we have seen on the average looking back lots and lots of years. What this meant is a lot of property investors could purchase anything and everything anywhere in the country and still make a positive cash flow. This has now changed, and certain locations and certain properties no longer stack up because of these higher interest rates. What this means is you need to be more picky, do more research, and make sure you're buying the right properties that still make you a small profit in the short term, but you're investing for the long-term growth and you're building your wealth through the appreciation of the assets and leveraging those assets. Yes, it's important to make a small profit every single month when you're investing in property, but that isn't where you build your wealth. You build your wealth through the appreciation of the assets. As property investors, we just became a little bit too comfortable with making a decent profit every month and benefiting from the appreciation of the assets. So from an investor's perspective, it's just a little bit of a mindset shift. If you immediately need a really strong return on investment, property might not always be the right thing for you. But if you're investing for the long term, even in quiet times during property, when you've leveraged your investments, the opportunity to build your wealth is second to none. And the final challenge in recent times is the increase in stamp duty. Although it's frustrating that you now have to pay a slightly higher level of tax for your stamp duty than you did even just a year ago, it's something that property investors have become used to, as well as understanding that this increase is frustrating, but it doesn't make or break a property investment. If something still stacks up in the long term, if you're still getting into a market which is growing in value, still giving yourself the opportunity to build your wealth, then £1,000 or £2,000 here or there isn't the end of the world. Although it does sometimes feel like one thing after another, we need to take them for what they are as and when they come, rather than take them as a blanket statement. These things aren't massive things that completely change the market. They're little things that cause frustration, but if you're looking at property in the long term and you know you have a plan, it's still worth doing it. So we've looked at challenges, and obviously there's been a few, but what are the opportunities in the current market? The first is growth is still happening. Despite all of the noise, property prices have increased by 3.9% in the last 12 months, according to Halifax. This isn't a crash. This is growth. Not everywhere is going to grow the same, and in London and the southeast, in places with low affordability, you're not going to see that opportunity for growth and building your wealth through property. But there's still lots of locations where you still see that opportunity for growth. In the Midlands, Yorkshire, Northwest, and even the Northeast, there's lots of locations that are growing in value, giving you the opportunity to build your wealth through property. You still have the opportunity to use leverage with mortgages and build your wealth through the value of the property, not just the cash that you put in. And yes, for some property investors, it's got a little bit too much, but less property investors means less competition, which gives us the opportunity to get better deals. 18 months ago, you were competing with 20 other property investors with every single deal you were looking at to try and get a good deal. This meant it could take months and months and months to find a deal that works for you. Now, with competition lower, sellers aren't being approached anywhere near as much as what they were 18 months ago, which gives us more opportunity to negotiate harder and get better deals at the point of purchase, earning both immediate equity and getting into strong locations. And finally, when we're leveraging, inflation still works hard for you as a property investor. Because we leverage our investments, inflation eats away at that debt every single year. So if you have 150 grand mortgage on your property and every year that debt is being eaten away at by 2%, in 10, 15, 20 years, that debt is worth significantly less than what it is in today's money, even if it's the same value nominally. Just to give you an example, one of our clients bought a property in Nottingham last year. That property has increased by 15 grand in the last 12 months. And even if they bought after May this year, that stamp duty would have only been a couple of £1,000s more, which means they still would be up significantly on their money that they put in. Plus, they have a strong rental income. Although their monthly rental income is only making them £300 a month, that's £300 a month every single month. And because they went for a good quality property, they haven't had any maintenance issues yet, and they're just saving that money for when they need to pay for maintenance or when they're ready to reinvest. So yes, the property market has changed in recent times. Property investment is no longer for someone who's just dipping their toe in. You're now a lot less likely to keep the property you bought as your initial home to then rent out as an accidental landlord. It doesn't make sense from a tax perspective. If you don't have a plan of what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, then property investment, again, might not be for you, because there's a lot of things and a lot of moving parts you need to be aware of so you can stay up to date. If you were just previously looking to buy and sell properties quite quickly, there's now obviously higher buying costs, which make this a lot less attractive. But if you're a property investor that understands why we invest in property and is in it for the long term, you're working towards a long-term goal, you're targeting locations based on strong fundamentals and improving fundamentals, you're making sure you're into locations that are still affordable for the local market, then there's still great opportunity to build your wealth through property. Although there's often a lot of noise in the wider market, property investment is still worth it for someone that's working towards a long-term goal. If you do need help identifying locations or targeting properties that will help you achieve your long-term goals, or maybe you need support putting a plan together to work towards your long-term goals, then I'll put a link to our website, Freighter Property Partners, in the description. But that's it for today's video, so thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.